Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart. Happy Saturday. Today is going to be more of a quicker, simpler discussion, but also probably still an interesting one, because there is this leak that has been going around, and I say that with air quotes, because I'm not sure it's actually a leak, maybe it's a leak, possibly a leak, but it's certainly a good conversation to have about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, because that is what this supposed leak pertains to. It could have some serious implications here. People are talking about it, people are going crazy about it, and so that's what we're diving into today. But before diving into it, let me just point out, I am so close to my goal of 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I would appreciate your subscription. But getting into it, basically, what's been going on, what people have been talking about, and I actually think I did bring this up in a video a while ago. Maybe I didn't, maybe I saw it and just didn't think it was worthy of news. I'm not even sure. It was definitely not a big talking point for any video as of late by me, but PlayAsia has this listing, a very real listing. You can literally pre-order The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for $59.99 US. And theoretically, you should be able to hold them to that price. So this may be an opportunity to save some money on Ocarina of Time. But this is why it's kind of a big deal, because some people think you wouldn't really be saving money on Ocarina of Time, because this is just going to be the actual retail price of the game. And I don't think it's going to be, but that's where there's this debate here. So if this is what the actual MSRP is going to be for the Ocarina of Time remake for Nintendo Switch 2 physical retail, that would then suggest that this is another budget title by Nintendo. Splatoon Raiders, budget title, $60 USD physical in retail. Star Fox, same thing, it's $60 physically in retail stores. Those are budget titles. So if this game is also a budget title, then it would be suggestive that Nintendo isn't going all out for this Ocarina of Time remake. There's something about it that makes them feel like they should be selling it at a cheaper price, which I just don't think is a realistic expectation here from so many different angles. I just don't think that's the case. But if it is the case, what I think we're looking at here is basically look at what Nintendo did for the Star Fox remake that just came out, and imagine Nintendo's going to do something similar for Ocarina of Time, which, by the way, if they did, would still be pretty good. That would mean visuals that are made to look like a modern game, however, structurally it would be the same, so that would lead to some issues in terms of design, which would be a problem, but that's what we'll be getting. The cutscenes would all be redone with voice acting, which would be amazing, and there would still be some form of new content because there was a challenge mode and a new multiplayer mode added to Star Fox, so what would be that equivalent for this Ocarina of Time remake? Maybe that's a boss rush mode, they've done that before. Maybe it's a new dungeon or two, that's a possibility as well. Maybe that extra effort goes into the restructuring of the world, so the better graphics make more sense with new designs and such. Point is, I think that sort of thinking would give us an approximation if Nintendo's putting in the same level of effort they put into Star Fox with Ocarina of Time. But is that what Nintendo's realistically actually going to do? We already know from Nintendo's own store page, from the metadata, that they are framing this as a full remake, which I don't think Nintendo's ever really done. They never described this as a full remake, and to describe a game in this modern era as a full remake, when we have things like the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, or all the Resident Evil remakes from Capcom, to call something a full remake, you're kind of positioning yourself to be compared to those titles in this modern era. Once upon a time, Nintendo referred to really simple remasters as remakes because back then, that's how a lot of people refer to things, but expectations have increased. Developers are far more ambitious now, and so to call something a full remake now, yeah, you are drawing those comparisons, so I do think we should keep that in mind here. Not to mention, we've already done the analysis on the teaser trailer in so many different ways. There's just literally new stuff going on there. The environments haven't changed around, at least when we take a look at Link's room. We've seen Link's design is completely different. The Deku Tree design is completely different. The literal fact that the tapestry that they're demonstrating is actually a 3D object, a 3D tapestry in a 3D room, that suggests that they recreated this perhaps because it's actually a new item in a new location, which I know some people don't necessarily agree with, but that's typically how this goes. So, I do think it's very unlikely that this is just going to be like a one-to-one remake like Star Fox. From that perspective, but there's even more to consider here. You look at Star Fox. That game, and I recently made an argument about this, and I understand, it definitely, I think, is a great value for the price, in my opinion, especially if you get it digitally for $50. Like, that is a great, or if you pre-ordered it at certain retailers to get it for $50, you could save $20, because a lot of games nowadays are $70. And so, to get that game at that price, I think is a great value. And I've argued that there's a lot of replay value for Star Fox, and there absolutely is. It's the kind of game I think you can go back to. But it is also the case that the campaign can be beaten in like 90 minutes. And sure, I've tried to explain to people that when playing Star Fox, you want to play through the campaign multiple times, because the way you play it, the story is very different. You'll see different routes, different levels, different bosses, different side areas. Like, there's a lot of reason to revisit the campaign multiple times, unlock for a greater difficulty, play through the multiplayer, the challenge mode, all that stuff, aim for higher scores. So it's a very arcade style game that has more value than what you might think initially if you're just looking at the runtime for the campaign just one time. Absolutely. But both things can be true here. That may be the case, and yet it is still kind of a short game, and I absolutely understand why Nintendo went for more of the budget price with that. Ocarina of Time, even if they are not doing any sort of substantial big changes here, if they just kind of give it the Star Fox level of effort, because of how much bigger a game it is, I don't think it's worthy being priced the same. In other words, this is one more reason to think that this pricing does not make sense, that it does not add up, and is probably not actually the case. I mean, fact of the matter is, the game's probably not coming out till at the very earliest October, but in my opinion, probably November, possibly December, but November is my bet here. We're half a year away from that, basically. It's unlikely to me that PlayAsia would know the exact pricing for this game. That's something else to consider here. That just seems unlikely. That's not how usually these things go. Sometimes retailers, sites will make a prediction, an estimate, a guess, and oftentimes they will be right, because usually pricing is very consistent with games. But guess what? In this day and age, this era, especially with Nintendo, that is far from the case. Consistency? Well, the only thing that's consistent is that things are inconsistent. We are seeing games priced at $40, $50, $60, $70, and $80 here. And I'm talking about Nintendo published titles. Main point being, it is not predictable in this case, and the only reason, in my opinion, why they probably would have put this pricing is because we understand it to be a remake of some kind, as is the Star Fox title, which just released for $60 physical, and that's why I think they put this pricing here, so they can put out this listing here ahead of everyone else, because it is an advantage to them to do so. It's more business. Even if they end up being wrong about the price, and some people end up saving some money. That's something else to consider here. Another thing, the brand of Zelda, the Zelda name, it's the kind of name that leads to Nintendo doing things that us, the consumers, don't always love. Let's go back to Skyward Sword HD. Skyward Sword HD, that's not a remake, definitely not a full remake, it's the exact opposite. Basically, it's like the most minimal reworking we've seen Nintendo do. This may sound like I'm saying I don't like Skyward Sword HD. That is not the case. I really enjoyed the fact that they offered dual analog controls, that you had an actual camera you can move around as an option. I like that you could still do the motion controls. I like that the game did look better in HD. Those are all nice things, but they were all simple things. This is a very basic remaster, and part of that's just because Skyward Sword has aged oh so gracefully, just like the Wind Waker, because of the art style. Like, all you have to do is upscale into HD, and it looks great. They don't have to do that much visual reworkings there for the game to look great, which is basically what happened, and then they did some control stuff. That's it. And there you go. And they priced that at $60. Meanwhile, you'll have full-on remakes that are priced sometimes cheaper. Why does Nintendo do this? Because the Zelda brand is just so much stronger than other Nintendo titles. Metroid Prime Remastered, for example, $40 freaking. Metroid Prime Remastered is probably the most ambitious remaster we've ever seen. It looks like a full-on visual remake because it essentially is, but it's technically a remaster because they built off the initial code of Metroid Prime. That is an ambitious reworking. Not Skyward Sword HD. Skyward Sword HD was priced $20 more expensive for the same console. This speaks to the brand power of Zelda, and so with that in mind, that's another reason why I'm just so doubtful Nintendo's going to price Ocarina of Time, which is probably their big holiday title, at $60. Probably it's going to be $70. There's a possibility, depending on how ambitious they go, this is even another $80 title. I do not believe that Mario Kart World is the last $80 title from Nintendo. I know, some people don't like the idea of hearing that, but I'll at least point this out, Nintendo's at least releasing games digitally for $10 cheaper. So, if you don't like the $80 price, and you're okay with digital, you're gonna have that option. And I'm not saying Ocarina of Time Remake is going to be an $80 game. I think it's probably going to be a $70 game. Physical. And that's because I don't think Nintendo's going to treat this as like the next Tears of the Kingdom per se, because I don't think it's requiring as many resources to do that. Tears of the Kingdom, interestingly, was a $70 title, but during the Switch 1 era where the expectation were $60 games. So Tears of the Kingdom was basically like the $80 game for the time, which is just another reason to understand that Nintendo is willing to price Zelda higher than everything else. Another reason why this $60 price tag just doesn't make sense. $70 on the other hand I think is more tame, but I will still say there's a small possibility they go for $80 depending on how ambitious they go with this. I think they are going to be ambitious, but I don't know if it's so ambitious that they should be pricing this above their typical brand new titles here. So my prediction is that this will be $70 physical, even if it is a fairly ambitious remake that's along the lines of what we've seen from Capcom's Resident Evil remakes, which is basically fully new visuals, totally redesigned structurally, so this will look and feel like a totally modern Zelda game that may even have some new content in the form of dungeons. Like, I think they could even go that far in terms of effort, redesign boss fights, better combat. It just feels like a modern Zelda game. Like, they could do all that, and I still think it could be priced at $70. But if Nintendo goes the extra mile, what Square Enix has done with the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, where they make this into like a full-on open world, then I'm starting to think, oh, maybe they are kind of making this kind of like a Tears of the Kingdom level kind of game, and then they go for that kind of pricing where it hits $80. Do I think they should do this? No. Do I think they will do this? I'm not sure. Again, my prediction is 70, and that's me assuming it's going to be pretty ambitious. And if I'm wrong, good news. You get to play the game for even cheaper at $60 USD. But I just don't think this is a realistic expectation. I don't think this is a legitimate leak. I think this is just a site, a retailer that is trying to get people to buy the game from their site early on. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.